Today is Friday, May 30th, 2014, and I'm here today speaking with Barbara Vernon in Camarillo, California. Barbara served our country in the waves during World War II. Barbara is 89 years young, and her birthday is September 27th, 1924. Barbara served our country from October 15th, 1944 until March 14th, 1946. Barbara achieved the rank of Yeoman First Class. My name is Barbara Kula, and I am here today on behalf of the Conejo Valley National Society Daughters of the American Revolution for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. Ed Lynch from Advanta Videography will be filming the interview today. Barbara, it's a pleasure to be here with you today, and I'm very anxious to hear about your experience in the waves. Could you start off by telling us where you grew up?
Well, I grew up in a little town called Cowell, and it's in Northern California, or I should say it was in Northern California. It was a little company town, and it produced cement, and when the quarry ran out, they closed the town down, and this was sometime after I had left it. But that was where I was born, yeah.
And you say it was a company town. About how many people lived there?
Well, there was probably maybe about 50 houses and a room, or boarding room, where people lived that were not married. And then there were a few little Mexican units that were separated. So there would be maybe 100 people altogether. Yeah.
That was a unique experience.
It was very unique. We were a community in and of itself. We operated that way, and my father was the general manager of the cement plant, and then my mother felt that she was sort of the matriarch of the community, but it worked out well. We had a one-room schoolhouse, actually 2 rooms, but we only used one. So, and 8th grades in one little room.
Oh, that's hard to imagine today.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Did you have brothers and sisters that you grew up with?
Yes, I had a brother and a sister, and then I had another brother who died when he was about 7, spinal meningitis. So, but it was my brother and my sister and myself, and we all grew up in Cowell. So.
And what did you do for fun?
Fun? Oh, we had a lot of good fun things. You know, we played marbles and jacks, and we had our little bags of jacks and marbles, and each one was very special to us. And we would build kites, and we would fly them over the fields, and sometimes the wind would die, and it would go falling down over the hills, and we would have to tromp away and get them back. I remember one kite that we built out of maybe 3 feet high, and it was a box kite. And we used to tease the younger kids, oh, when the wind gets big, we'll give you a ride in it. But of course, the wind never got that big. And then we had one bicycle that we shared among the 3 of us. We had roller skates that you'd put on your shoes, the kind that would clamp on, and you had the little key to work them. So there were a lot of fun things like that.
I noticed in your apartment you have a cello. Could you tell us about that?
Well, my mother was interested in music. I think she played the piano a little bit. And so she formed a hometown orchestra, which was made up of about 8 to 10 people. And we would meet once a week in our living room, and this was grammar school age kids. And so we were called the Hometown Orchestra, and we would play at school functions and the foreman's meetings and special occasions in the town. And of those people in that orchestra, a number of them went on and became commercial musicians, so which was quite good.
Very nice experience for people to be exposed to at a young age.
Yes, I played my cello from grammar school through high school and then put it aside, and then, perhaps when I was middle-aged somewhere, I picked it up again and played it. And I'm involved in orchestra and duets and so on now. So
That's wonderful. Now you graduated from high school, and where was that?
Well, I graduated from Acalanes High School, and that was in Lafayette. And I moved to Acalanes during my senior year. We had gone 3 years to Mount Diablo in Concord, California, and it got a little bit big, so we formed a new high school. So our senior year we spent fixing up new rules and laws and so on for us to live by.
Very nice.
It was good.
What were you thinking about in high school that you wanted to do for a career someday?
Well, not terribly much, you know. I was thinking, I could go into nursing or something like that.
And where were you in the family as far as being oldest or youngest?
I was the youngest, yeah. My brother and the brother that died, then my sister and myself, so.
Had anyone been in the military?
No, not actually. During World War I, my father didn't qualify. I think he was busy in his work or something. And then World War II, my brother was working in the military aircraft industry. So, yeah.
And so when you finished high school, what did you end up pursuing?
Well, I went to San Francisco City College, and that's now San Francisco State, I believe, and I took up nursing. And that was fine. I did that for about a year and a half, and then left the school there when I was eligible to go into nursing training in a hospital, which I did. And I still wasn't that great a student, I think, and I thought, no, nursing isn't for me. So I left the hospital, and then I went into business college, Willis Business College in Oakland, and worked. Well, I took business classes for a while, and then worked at an insurance company.
That was great that you could get a job and see what
Yes.
the education helped
Yeah.
you with.
Yeah, it was very good.
And how old were you about that time?
I was 18 when I went into the hospital part of the training, and I stayed there for only about 6 months and left, so I was still 18.
And how about when you took the job at the insurance company?
Probably about 18 too. Yeah.
So how long did you stay there?
Well, actually, until I was 20. Yeah.
And then what was your next step?
Well, I joined the Waves.
What made you decide to do that?
Well, my sister had been in the Waves, And she had graduated from UC Berkeley and was stationed in Norman, Oklahoma as a control tower operator. And she suddenly died, which was very hard. So I think that was one of the reasons. Mm-hmm.
So you decided you would like to fulfill something that she couldn't complete.
Mm-hmm.
How did your family feel about you wanting to go into the waves?
I think there was maybe both sides of the picture there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they were very supportive of me. Mm-hmm.
What does WAVES stand for?
Stands for Women Auxiliary Volunteer Emergency Service.
And do you have any idea why the WAVES branch was formed?
Not really. I know it was some sort of an organization some years ago, but then during World War II it became the vital part that it was.
Because they needed to have the men serve overseas, perhaps.
Right, yes. And
so you filled a need.
Yes, they had wax and they had waves and they had some Air Force people. But yes, it met the need. Mm-hmm.
And what reason did you choose the WAVES over another branch?
Well, my sister for one thing, but I just felt that it was a much nicer group of people, that they did a better type of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was reading about the pay scale for a Navy WAVE, and I found it to be quite interesting. You were very fortunate and worked hard, did well, and you achieved Yeoman First Class. So I couldn't find a pay scale for that specifically, but I did find that a Seaman First Class made a monthly salary of about $66 during World War II. And if they lived on base and had food there, they could get as much as $157.50 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very interesting. I'm not sure if you did that well, but I thought it was interesting to see. So it probably wasn't the pay scale that attracted you so much.
No, it wasn't the pay scale. I know I squeaked by many times, and I did live ashore once I got stationed at Treasure Island.
Yes.
So that was good. So
now, where did you go for basic training?
we went to Hunter College in New York, and I enlisted when I was 20, which was when you could enlist. And in October, I went on a train from Oakland to New York.
What kind of a send-off did you get?
Oh, a lot of fun things. There were going away parties and showers and a lot of good fun things to happen with all my friends. So, but I remember the cold weather on the train, and we'd pick up waves and wax on the way back, and I'd look at the wax and I'd say, no, I'm glad I'm in the waves. But on the way back, we had to stop at Chicago and spend, I think it was just a day or something, looking at canine dogs and things. But then got to New York, and we stayed at Hunter College, and that was an interesting thing, you know.
What was it like living there?
Well, it was interesting. We had taken over the barracks, not barracks, but buildings.
The dormitories?
Dormitories. And I remember living on one floor where I think we had an apartment with maybe 4, 5, 6 bedrooms, and there were several of these on this floor. And so I was the chairperson for watching things that had to be done. And they would call me if something went wrong, like, I've got a bunch of bugs under my kitchen, I'd have to go look, and there would be swarms of these creepy, crawly bugs that I'd never seen before. So, and then the food was pretty good, we had civilian cooks, and they were passable. And then we had a lot of up to 3 type things. And I remember one location where we had to march a lot. And this was right next to a large reservoir of water. And the wind would come whipping off of that water, making white caps. And those of us from California were absolutely frozen. We had layers and layers of clothes on under our uniforms. But, yeah. And then another thing was we had to have inoculations for all sorts of diseases. And the idea was to get out there and exercise and do push-ups and things like that, which I did. And then my arm just got so swollen and red, and I went to sick bay for 3 or 4 days because I was allergic to the horse serum or something, and they had to cut my blouse off. So yeah, it was horrible. So yeah.
So you learned all the basic training. Were there about 6 weeks?
Yeah, we did. And while we were there was Veterans Day, I believe it was, and we had a call of duty. We had to go march in a parade up Fifth Avenue with all of the military people and salute the people, at St. Peter's, I guess it was, or whatever.
St. Patrick's Cathedral,
yeah.
probably,
Yeah.
there.
Right. And that was quite an experience.
What was that like, to march by the dignitaries and salute?
It was quite interesting. It's like, okay, got to salute properly here. But it was very interesting.
Yes, that was quite an honor.
Yes, it was. Uh-huh.
So were you thinking during basic training what you would like to do next?
Well, yes, I had wanted to become a control tower operator, and then I had qualified for all of the position, but then they raised the minimum wage to 21, and I was 20, so I didn't get to that training.
So where did you go next, Barbara?
Well, I went to Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Was that a choice, or did they just assign you?
No, they assigned me, I think, and based on skills and things. So I went to Stillwater, and we were stationed at A&M College. We had taken over the college there. And it was really very nice. The people were lovely. The cooks were great.
And how was the weather?
The weather was cold, and the ground was frozen, and the little pond out in front of our building suddenly froze one day, and I couldn't I laughed so at the ducks that went out and skidded all over the ice. Yeah. But it was very good.
So you felt happy there.
Yes, it was very good. We were taking Yeoman Training, which was very good.
What did that entail?
Just basic office type duties and learning shorthand more that I didn't like to do, and typing and all sorts of procedures that they would use.
And how long were you there?
I think probably about 6 weeks or so. I was there from the end of, beginning of November, or actually the beginning of December, and left at the end of January. So
What was it like there, living around the town? How were the townspeople
the
towards the military?
the townspeople were great. They were friendly and nice and cooperative, and it was very nice.
What did you do when you had time off?
Well, one of the things, I have to tell you about this. My future husband, which we were not engaged at that time, had been overseas for quite a while. And he came back from overseas while I was stationed at Stillwater. And I knew he was coming. And I'm not quite sure just what day or what time. But one day, marching from our buildings where we had classes back to the barracks, I looked over and there he was. So I broke ranks, ran across, and that was an unpardonable thing to do, breaking ranks and everybody cheering and so on. So, but there was the commanding officer standing on the porch of the barracks, and she called me, and that was not a good thing to do, breaking ranks. So, little stiff reprimand, and said, "That's all right. Go
That was
ahead."
the end of it?
Yes.
You were forgiven.
Yes.
So how did it go for the rest of your time there?
Very good. We had classes and so on. So it was a happy time. I went to Norman to see where my sister had served.
How far was that?
I don't know. I remember getting on the bus and riding for a little bit. Yeah. So that was good.
You got to be...
So then, just different things like that. We had Christmas there.
What was that like, being away from home for Christmas?
It was good, Yeah, I had a new ring on. I was engaged.
It was a happy time.
It was a good time. Yeah. So.
How did you stay in communication with your parents while you were away?
Well, I would write a lot. We wrote letters and I'd write to them all the time.
Were they surprised to hear about your engagement?
No, not really. I think he had stopped by to talk to him before he came to see me, so they knew.
So your fiancé was also in the military?
Yes, he was in the Navy. So, and we were both being set up to choose where we wanted to go. When he was up for reassignment, I was up for reassignment. So we each put in the top 3 naval districts, the 12th, 10th maybe, and the 9th or something like that. And so we prayed and prayed, and we both got the 12th.
Where was that?
That was this whole Southern all of California. So then I got stationed at Treasure Island, and he got stationed on the Delta Queen, which was the ship taking soldiers and military people back and forth to different places in the bay.
I see. So that was a very fortuitous assignment for you both.
Well, I don't know how it could have been better. You know, we both were at the same place, and yeah, it worked out great.
Exactly where is Treasure Island, Barbara?
Treasure Island is in the San Francisco Bay, and I remember as a child going there when it was built for the World's Fair, and this was in 36 to 37 or so. And I would go there and I'd look at all of these wonderful exhibits, never dreaming that I was going to be stationed there, you know, a few years down the line.
Now, where did you live when you were stationed there?
I was able to live at home because my home in Pleasant Hill was just a short drive, and my husband-to-be lived in Lafayette, which was nearby, and so we'd hop in the car and drive to Treasure Island. Yeah.
So you commuted.
We commuted.
Well, that certainly made it easier to travel together. How did that work out?
It worked out very well, and occasionally we'd each have to spend some time at the base or at Delta Queen or wherever he was. But it worked great, you know. Yeah.
I remember you were telling me a funny story about the car. Could you tell everyone about that?
Yeah, the car. We had a little old car, Plymouth or something, and it worked pretty well. But we were driving back and forth, I guess it's about 20 miles or so. And I remember one time coming back from Treasure Island, and it kept conking out and conking out. We get it started, conk out again, and finally the poor thing just died. And we were still down in Oakland, and we ended up having to hitchhike home, which was the first and last time I ever did that. But yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. That's a very unique way to serve, to be able to live at home and commute.
Yes.
Best of both worlds.
It was. It really was a great time.
Now that you had had your 6 weeks of training, yeoman training, what were your duties at Treasure Island?
Well, I was stationed at the personnel office of the Training and Distribution Center. Treasure Island was a base where people came, they stayed, a lot of them came and went. We had to take care of all of their records. And so I would say there would be maybe 14, 15 waves in the personnel office. And I'd work at receiving new people, discharging people, or sending them off to another place. I would work on their emergency leaves that they would have to have, do research on that and get them off to where they had to go. We worked on a court-martial desk, which was sort of sad. There was one wave that actually worked in the personnel office, and she'd go back and forth to San Francisco, and she would be buying these nice little gifts for her nieces and nephews and everything. And we thought, that's interesting, you know, but why? And before you know it, she was being hauled off by the military police for having shoplifted all of these gifts, which was sort of a sad thing to see.
Yes, that must have been.
Yeah, it was. So, but we had to keep track of all of the service jackets. We had a whole big wall of service jackets.
Now, what were these jackets used for?
This was each person on the base had to have a service jacket, and that would have all of their service records in it. So everybody on the base had to have a service jacket, and we'd have to account for them once a month.
And how many were there?
Many, many, many. But we would divide up the people in the office, and you take this, you take that, and you count them. And if we were ever off one or two, we'd always say, "Oh, we better look for Benjamin Lipschitz." And we usually found his, and found whoever was missing.
Oh, what a task. And that was once a month.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any secretarial skills needed for any of the officers there?
Yes, actually, I don't know why, but occasionally I would be sent upstairs to work for the Commodore. And he was sort of the big boss, and I'd have to work for him and take some dictations and so on, which was okay, but I preferred the personnel office.
Well, they must have thought highly of your work to send you there.
Well, maybe.
Or figured you had the best temperament of all.
I don't know what it was, but we did have a very wonderful chief petty officer in our office by the name of Chief Petty Officer McCarty, and he had the most wonderful sense of humor and discipline. You know, he had a wonderful combination, and we always knew we could turn to him for whatever. So he was good.
You had a good working environment there.
Yes, it was very good.
So there were some good positives by going to Treasure Island. You could commute. You loved being in the waves. You had a variety of tasks you could do and were trained to do. Lived in a beautiful area. And we were talking earlier, and you mentioned that the greatest thing was the feeling of being able to help the military and their families. Tell us some of the things that you needed to do.
Well, it wasn't any one thing or two things. It was the overall feeling of giving and being of service and being of help to all of those military people, basically the Navy, that would come through our office. And we knew that we were doing something good. You know, somebody had to do it, and we were there to do it.
What gave you the most satisfaction, Barbara?
Just the joy of doing it.
And there was one particular part, I believe you were telling me about, that you really enjoyed, and that was when it came time for the military person to return home.
Yeah.
What did that entail?
Well, that was after peace was declared, and they did ask me to stay on a little bit longer, and I did, and we had military people coming into Treasure Island from all over the Pacific, and it was a distribution point for them. They had to check into Treasure Island before they'd catch their next flight home or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think just sending them off was great.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So how long were you stationed at Treasure Island?
Well, it was almost a year and a half.
And were you married during that time?
Yes, we were able to get married in March of that year. So, and that was great, you know. And we had a week's vacation in Monterey, so, which was wonderful. Yeah.
And then eventually you were finished with your service time. Was your husband still in the military?
Yes, he was. He was in the military for a total of 6 years. So he still had a little time to do.
And you raised a family when you
We
were
had
out?
3 children, 2
And,
girls and a boy,
and where did you both live when you were raising your family?
in Pleasant Hill. Yeah, we bought a house and we put up with some strange things in this new house, but yeah, it turned out pretty good.
I need to back up just a minute. I wanted to ask you, where were you when you found out that the war had ended?
I was, I think, at the island, at the office. And I remember everybody in San Francisco just going wild with joy. I remember seeing President Harry Truman riding down Market Street in this convertible, waving to everybody, and sailors and people kissing each other and just having such a wonderful time.
And how did you feel personally?
Great joy. Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you think people treated you when you terminated your service?
Just normal. Yeah, you know, because I had been living at home and so on. So.
They knew that you were a wave and
Oh,
you had
yes,
served your
yeah.
time. So you and your husband lived in that area to raise your children. Now, before you became a wave, you did have accounting skills, office skills. Did you use any of those skills later?
Yes, I did, actually. I went to work later on in my life and became an accounting supervisor. So yeah, it was quite good.
How do you think the military helped you in your future career?
Well, I think it sort of gelled a lot of thoughts. We were all feeling so different, I think, in those days. The whole country was behind fighting a war, and we had suffered a great deal. We knew when people had died, are missing in action, wounded. So it was just wonderful to know that that was ended and things would go on much better.
Yes, yes. You did have a lot of support as a
Yeah.
country.
Yes, yeah. The country was behind us 150%. You know,
Yes.
yeah. We could see what was going on in Europe before we were involved, and we were going through rationing, we were doing a lot of difficult things.
Yes.
And we went through a tough time and we came out okay.
Yes. Now, after living in Northern California, did you stay there for many years?
Yes, and then we moved down to Fresno and up to Stockton, back down to Fresno.
So you've had a tour.
I came down here because I loved it down in Camarillo, so
You picked a good place to be.
yes.
I found this a verse about the Navy Wave song, and I would like to just read one stanza to you. The name of the song is Waves of the Navy. Waves of the Navy, there's a ship sailing down the bay, and she won't slip into port again until that victory day. Carry on for that gallant ship and for every hero brave who will find ashore his man-sized chore was done by a Navy wave.
That's beautiful.
It was a pleasure talking with you today, and I want to thank you, Barbara, for the service that you gave to our country.
Thank you.